Okay.
Is it possible to get a copy of that German book? Because you told me one time you could take them to the first book of the Bible was printed, and what was it called?
History lesson! Who invented the printing press?
Gutenberg.
Gutenberg! Do you know what year?
1500.
Early 1500s. What is the very first book that was printed on the printing press?
Bible.
How many books do you think that Bible had?
All of them.
Oh, that's a good answer. All of them. 73. Historical fact. And interesting, the printing press was invented before the Reformation. So what do you think? It had to have been 73 because it was the Reformation who took out 6 books in the 1520s.
See, I tried to find documentation for that, you know, for the 73 books, and I sort of scanned and I really got into it, but I couldn't find where it specifically said how many books. Because I wanted to use that information because you brought it up, you know, the 73 books. But
It's off the printing press?
No, I want a documentation, something like I pointed to them and said, that encyclopedia says, you know, the church.
Folks, you got to be careful when you look at encyclopedias and history books. My wife teaches history, okay? She teaches world history. So you know me, I'm going through the history book. And what period of time do you think I go for? I look at
The Reformation.
about 1520. Okay? I want to see what they say about the Reformation. Okay? And amazing what they say there. So, a lot of these secular books, you got to remember, they were written by people from a different slant. And some of the things...
My point was, it says in there, the church, the canonist of the church.
Oh, what church?
Yeah, and that was a question I asked them, which they couldn't answer.
Well, we answered.
We answered.
So,
Christ.
oh yeah. So, that's why it's so neat and so important to know the Bible. We haven't started our story yet, right? And continue with our story. We are on the top of page 4, believe it or not. The third sentence.
The gospel of Jesus Christ does not always make one feel good, nor does it bring peace between brothers and sisters. If proclaimed...
That's it. Let's go ahead and take a look at Matthew's gospel and see what he talks about. The gospel of Christ doesn't make a person always feel good or bring peace. Matthew chapter 10, verse 34 through 39. All right.
Do not think that I have come to bring peace upon the earth. I have come to bring not peace, but the sword. For I have come to set a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's enemies will be those of his household.
So Jesus says something about what's going to happen to a person that's going to follow him. And what does he say?
Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me, and whoever loves son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me.
Okay. So what does he say in the verse prior to that we just read that's going to happen to people when they follow the gospel?
Father and son will be at loggerheads.
Okay. Is there going to be peace and tranquility between people? Man against father, daughter against mother, daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. Not pleasant. He's saying there's going to be turmoil between the two. Either you're going to follow or not. If you have contrary people, you're going to have problems. So whenever we get into the gospel, it's going to create tension. It's not going to allow our lives to be nice and smooth and hunky-dory. It's going to cause friction. So what Scripture tells us is be prepared for it, to stand up for the gospel, regardless.
I talked to a Jehovah's Witness once, and her question was, why was the Catholic Church so involved in paganism? What are they talking about? I have no idea what she's talking about.
What do you do when somebody says that?
Says what?
Why is the Catholic Church involved in paganism?
Yeah, that's what, and I didn't have time really to elaborate for the
How do you answer that question?
Because they think that Easter.
What is paganism?
Easter is a pagan celebration.
On National Geographic the other night, they had a segment of it called the Dark Ages. And of course there was a lot of people that weren't exposed to the church. But Charlemagne, he had some good points and he had some bad points. But what he did was he journeyed up into Germany or whatever, and he required that any of the pagans accept Christ or they would be executed. And he spread Christianity that way, or Catholicism that way, but he...
Who's that?
Charlemagne.
Yeah, but Charlemagne wasn't... See, when was he baptized? Was that on his deathbed?
1,000. Thereabouts. But he required people not to be pagans. They had to be members of the church or they were executed. So maybe that is part of it.
I don't know, but I'm looking back to find out what...
Add one thing that when Christ was on earth, there were the Jewish people and then there were pagans. And so really the whole message of Christ was to believe in God and not gods, pagans. So in a way, it's just the opposite.
That was my answer to her was, well, most people who didn't have a pagan.
Christmas! What's the date of Christmas?
December 25th.
Why did the church pick December 25th? Why did they pick September 20th, my birthday, instead?
Celebration of the winter solstice.
What else is going on? The church. You want to blow? Ask somebody, how did we get the December 25th as the day to celebrate Christmas? Do you realize there's a Catholic Church in the 4th century who determined that December 25th would be the day to celebrate Christmas? And why do they pick December 25th?
You got it right there.
The winter solstice. What happens at the winter solstice? Think about the daylight, the time of day, the time of night. What happens?
It's the shortest, it was considered the shortest day of the year.
We have the shortest day
And the longest,
and the longest night. The shortest amount of daylight and the longest period of darkness. But what happens at the winter solstice? What happens to this relationship?
It changes.
What happens?
Now it's
The light now starts to increase. Darkness starts to decrease. That's why they picked December 25th as Christmas. It was a pagan holiday. But what the church did, it piggybacked upon that, and now it's going to Christianize this pagan holiday. Before they were celebrating this thing for gods and all this other pagan stuff, but the church now says, let's use this day now to build upon paganism. And what's the symbolism about now the winter solstice and the days are getting longer? What is that telling us about the light? The light is increasing. That's why we have December 25th as Christmas. Christ now comes into the world at this point in time, the longest night, the shortest day, and now he comes into the world, and now light increases. What we call Christ, the light of the world, right?
Yeah.
That's where it comes from. So they're building upon a pagan holiday, but they're making it Christian. So I don't know, maybe they're coming from that vantage point.